This video was made possible by our generous supporters on Patreon. Check out patreon.com/NWR for all the details.
So back at PAX East, I had the opportunity to play the first hour and a half of the remake of Trials of Mana on Nintendo Switch. And well, it wasn't something I wanted to stop playing. That alone has made me increasingly excited for the late April release of Square Enix's other notable 2020 remake. I played it from the start of the game all the way up until the first major boss battle with the memorable Full Metal Hugger, aka that giant crab-looking thing. It shows up a lot in the marketing. A lot of things stood out to me, with the majority of them being nice and welcome, though I might have some concerns on the quality of the Switch version. First off, and it bears repeating, Trials of Mana is a single-player only game. That runs counter to the original Super Famicom game, which only saw an official localized release last year on Switch, as well as the Super Nintendo predecessor, Secret of Mana. Do not make plans for romping through the new Trials remake with a friend. You just can't do it. While that is a bummer, I'm not sure if it'll really hurt the game overall. The given reason from the developers is that they wanted to emphasize the single-player experience, which this game assuredly does, at least in my experiences with it. At the outset, you can pick from 6 different characters to form a party of 3. It's already a lot better than the Super Nintendo Super Famicom version, because they actually tell you what the characters do, as opposed to the like, go try it out in Collection of Mana. You need a guide to know who's who and what's what. So you start off as the first character that you select, and encounter the other 2 early on. I picked budding swordsman Duran and Ice Princess Angela, and was able to play as them in my demo. I kicked off with Duran's story, where he is at odds with the fearsome Crimson Wizard, and eventually is left for dead with a thirst for vengeance. The early parts of Duran's story are simple and guided. It's clearly introductory, focusing on acclimating you to the battle system and mechanics. This is an action RPG, much like the original game it's based on, but this now offers a behind-the-back view. I wasn't tested too often in the opening hour, but it was enjoyable to wail on basic enemies and occasionally dip into my ring menu for items and abilities. The combat involves a lot of melee attacks at this early stage. You can alternate effectively between light and heavy attacks. It has a really nice rhythm to it, especially as all the foes appear on the overworld. Part of the way through the early portion, I came across Angela. Before we went to explore a cavern together, I had the option of playing through her introduction. It's beneficial because it fills you in on the backstory and does let you mess around with the different nuances of a different character, but it does grind the pace of everything to a halt. Thankfully, this should only happen twice on a playthrough, as your party will be at the most 3. But if you want to just blaze forth without playing through Angela's backstory, you can, which makes replaying with different characters a bit more appealing. Adding a second character to your party spices up the combat a whole lot, as the other character will be computer controlled, and you can switch between the 2 heroes at the press of a button. Combat gets more heavily into spacing with the second character, especially during boss fights. Trying to position your 2 characters was integral. You could set up some really powerful attacks. While I did thoroughly enjoy romping through the early parts of Trials of Mana, if I had an overarching concern, it's that it's very guided. It might just be a first hour and a half kind of issue, but I do get the distinct vibe that this remake is skewing towards a younger demographic. That's ultimately not really a major issue for me, but if you're looking for a more hardcore remake of a Square Enix game from the late 90s, Final Fantasy VII Remake is out earlier in April. If you want a bubbly, colorful remake, Trials of Mana has got you. Also, I played the Switch version, which had a weird amount of graphical stuttering, specifically in cutscenes. It was noticeable. You can definitely see it happens in our footage. The action, thankfully, ran very well. As someone who plays the Switch primarily in handheld mode, I'm still down for getting this on Nintendo's hybrid console. But if you're someone who likes to game on a TV, I'd probably look more into the PlayStation 4 version if you also own that console. Or maybe even it's coming out on Steam as well, so you can do that. All that said, this was a demo version, so stay tuned to our full thoughts on the Switch version come release. And then if you're a little on the fence, maybe we can help you make your decision. And the release for Trials of Mana will be very soon. As of writing, we're about a month away. Trials of Mana will hit Nintendo Switch on April 24th, almost 25 years after the Super Famicom version came out in Japan. and less than a year after that version came out everywhere else. I'm buying what this remake is selling, and I look forward to exploring the mana-fueled world when it comes out. And maybe, you can join me as well when Trials of Mana comes out on Nintendo Switch. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you enjoy this, and get ready for Square Enix remakes. It's happening. Bye.
Possible by our generous supporters on Patreon. Did you know that Nintendo World Report is funded directly by fans like you? When you support Nintendo World Report on Patreon, you get immediate access to multiple exclusive podcasts every month, exclusive Discord channels, an early look at select content, and more, all for as little as $1 a month. Check out patreon.com/NWR for all the details.